Dracula, what a romantic moonlit walk. For me, Blade, let us have the same faction. I wanted you to catch me. It's part of it for me. Alright guys, I got my hat on. I'm feeling real spooky and emo because I just won a LVO qualifier with the Spooky Boys. Played some Midnight Suns. I went to this LVO qualifier to just get some practice for Contest of Champions, the team event I'm playing with DeLuca and Johnny. And I ended up winning the whole thing, so I'm going to kind of run you through the list. We're going to talk about how it works and what I think's strong about it and what I think's interesting. And so if you're thinking about playing some Midnight Suns or you picked up the new Dracula box, you'll have a good head start or at least know where I'm at for it. So the list I took had Blade. Blade is the leader of Midnight Suns. He's kind of the reason you're here. Bump is incredibly strong. It is a super, super strong superpower. Like being able to buy mobility on any character is really good. Positioning is like half the game, so Bump incredibly strong. Despite that, Blade is like really a maligned piece. Lots of people don't think he's terribly good. And they're wrong. He's totally fine. He is like a very average 4 threat. He has good damage if he starts near you. I think a lot of the trick is to play him as a counterpunch piece or have other models set up bleed for him, as it allowing him to spender somebody 7 dice, full rerolls on Mystic, with a medium advance afterwards, is just a lot of damage and movement for an action. Now 4 power, very expensive obviously, but still. Pretty good. From there, my number 1 splash is Dracula. I play Dracula a lot. I think he was in I think it was 4 rounds. I played him twice. He's really powerful 5 threat. He is not an every game piece. There's just certain, like, the character can do a lot of things, but is at its strongest when he can plant his feet and double tap, or when other people have to attack him. So into things like web warriors that don't want to fight your characters at all, Drac loses a lot of strength. What makes Drac powerful is that he asks you a very hard question. He essentially goes, are you a model that is not threatened by my counterattack? Or can you attack me from outside of my counterattack range in some way? Right? He's a 4/3/4 with 7 health, so the likelihood that you're like one-tap him is very low. He punishes you really hard for leaving him low, as he has lots of ways to heal himself from just like bleed being around. The list does a lot of bleed, and from being able to make the attack that heals him, or from being able to go into mist form. So there's huge swaths of the game that just cannot interact with Drac or take any kind of profitable trade into him. Something like Zemo. Zemo's everywhere right now. He's like one of the most popular 3 threats in the entire game. He can't attack Drac. Like if Drac has 4 or more hit points, it is super risky for Zemo to attack Drac unless he is like using the medium move away attack, Steel Rush. So it's just like really hard for large portions of the game to fight Dracula, and this list looks to exploit that. It's playing Warpath, so if you attack him from outside of 4, he can just Warpath at you and counterattack you. So unless you're at, I think it's a good bit beyond range 4, if I recall. Especially if he wants to, and if he has the power for his range 3 attack. So if he has a 7 power on him, like where you attack him and he has 7 power, and he can pay 1 for Warpath, pay 2 for counterattack, pay 4 for Spender, he can counterattack you from range 5. So it's not like the best plan to get around him. Yeah, overall, really, really strong. Bump takes him over the top because Bump lets him just like kind of plant his feet in a wider radius. So if you have 3 power on him, being able to bump and pull from range 3 is like not quite a 4-stick, but it's pretty close to a 4-stick. So it means his threat range to interact with you is very, very long. And then he's a very, very scary model to get two tapped by. He's also weirdly difficult to stagger profitably. So the vast majority of things that apply stagger are attacks. If you attack him with an attack that staggers, like your Namor, you come in there, you charge, you stagger him. He gets to counterattack you. Like you're in his counterattack range. The vast majority of staggers are range 2 and are attacks. There are a handful that are range 3. Like Black Cat is probably the most prominent one, but Black Cat can be counterattacked by the big attack unless she hits the elusive trigger. So it merely means that like Black Cat and like maybe Black Widow getting lucky are like some of the only models that can like stagger Drac reliably and also not get absolutely blown out by a counterattack. And then like even if you stick the if you stick the stagger and he gets the counterattack, it's like you gave him an action because he got to make an attack. So like it feels bad all over the place. All right, from there, let's go into what Midnight Suns we played. So I have Encantu, the Living Mummy. Encantu is an incredibly pushed model. Like this model is an Iron Man chassis. He has like one lower energy defense and one higher mystic defense than a typical Iron Man, but he's 5 health on both sides like Iron Man and has damage reduction min 1 like Iron Man. And then he has his entire souls mechanic on top of it, which means that like he can really easily heal like 3 or 4 over the course of a game. And the souls also just like turn on so much damage. And man, the model is maybe best in class in the 3 threat slot. There's lots of really cool things that are interesting about Encantu. So Encantu has a wild push on his builder. The push is forced in size 3, which is good, but if you have a soul, because the skulls turn into wilds when you spend souls, and by turn into, I mean count as. When they count as wilds, it gives him an 80% chance to push something if he has a soul. Because you get it on skulls and you get it on wilds. It's the same as like rolling a hit. It's incredibly powerful. And also it has the best possible timing. It's timed the same as Recalibration Matrix. It's after all dice mods. So you get to see if Dynamo rerolls your stuff, which means that Dynamo can't remove your skulls. So if you like have 3 souls, you need to do damage to Dynamo to kill him or whatever. He can't make you reroll the skulls because they're skulls. So he's got really good output. He's got really good scenario play. He's a little bit on the slow side, but Bump fixes that. And just the souls mechanic is just so dynamic and powerful. Like he's immune to bleed, hex, and poison. And then if he has a soul, he's pseudo-immune to like every other condition because he just pays a single soul to remove it. Okay, so that's Encantu. You play him a lot, but not every game. Essentially when you need a 3. Werewolf by Night. I don't love this guy. I think of the models in the new Midnight Suns box, plus Dracula. I'm playing all of them except for Frank. Not playing Frank because I think he just doesn't super fit with what Midnight Suns is trying to do. He has power problems. Their leadership costs power. And also, Voodoo just eats his lunch. I would just play Voodoo over him every single time. And I've kind of admitted that I'm not going to play Frank Voodoo. Instead, when I have 8 points of in-faction requirement, I'm going to play Encantu and Werewolf. So Werewolf is here. I think you could totally play Frank if you're planning on playing more Voodoo and less Encantu. Right now, I think Encantu is slightly better than Voodoo, but I think that's entirely meta-dependent. Right now, lots of stuff in my meta is trying to kill me. But if lots of your stuff in your meta is trying to steal things, going Voodoo Frank is probably better. But anyway, Werewolf by Night, I don't love the guy. He's a very weird brawling piece. He has like lots of status and control abilities, but doesn't really turn damage into power, or power into damage. Like his spender's only 1 more dice than his builder. Yeah, but it gives you a guaranteed throw, and it gives you like a 90% chance to put good conditions out. And then like the pounce is obviously like a good damage piece. But Midnight Suns, unless you're playing Immortal Hulk, are like fairly throw light. So and like everybody plays Brace. Like Brace is in like every single list right now. So he just doesn't do that much damage. And his counterattack is decent, but it's not that threatening. Overall, this guy is like just good enough to like make the list. If I had better in-faction models, I probably wouldn't be playing Werewolf by Night, but I don't, so here we are. Oh, and then like he has the Howl, and the Howl is like either the greatest thing in the world or it does like nothing. It really depends on your matchup. Like if you're playing against something that has like very important reactive abilities like Shield, having Werewolf by Night follow around Nick Fury and take Nick Fury's power every turn is like freaking incredible. But lots of matchups it like doesn't matter. Dr. Voodoo. Dr. Voodoo is the best fourth Red and Sons by a country mile. Frank doesn't change this. Dr. Voodoo is incredible still, even after his massive nerf. He's still very, very strong. Bump is very, very good. Fixes a lot of his problems. Yeah. I also just really like playing a lot of medium-based medium moves in Midnight Suns, like walk, bump onto the midline, being able to make an attack on anything they put on the midline, while also still contesting whatever objective was there, is really good. Next, we have Black Panther, Chosen of Bast. I hate this character. So this character's like better than a lot of the other three threats we have. I think I need to play more Moon Knight in Midnight Suns. Every Midnight Suns player I've talked to when I was trying to put together a strong Midnight Suns list told me that don't bother even testing Moon Knight. Moon Knight's garbage. And I had only played him in Web Warriors, where he's an all-star because he like abuses all webbed up really, really hard. And is just kind of like another Web Warrior nerd that you have to go like chase down. Black Panther seems slightly better. He's also like fast because he's medium base, medium move. He has that like walk bump onto the midline line that he can take if somebody gives him something to punch across the table from. He just doesn't threaten to do a lot of damage, doesn't have a lot of help, is pretty squishy. The no reroll ability is pretty good, but he's still like, he doesn't necessarily like beat Zemo. Like if I lined him up across from Zemo, he doesn't consistently kill Zemo over Zemo killing him, which is like is frustrating. And sometimes he can kill the world, but not often. The flips ability is like hard to get enough power going on the character before he's dead, because it's just like he just has to be like right next to you to do anything. He's totally fine. I am not in love with this character. Speaking of characters I'm not in love with, Immortal Hulk. Immortal Hulk is here. It largely to cover Sun's bad matchups. Like when playing like the Drac Incantu Blade plan is not good, is when we're playing Immortal Hulk. Asgard is the main culprit here, like playing like Immortal Hulk Blade Dracula or Immortal Hulk Blade Voodoo at 15 and 16. When, you know, like Asgard or a Thanos or something traps you on low points, having like a character that threatens to put as much output out as he does while still being equally wide as the opponent is kind of the idea behind his inclusion here. He can do lots and lots of damage. He's just like a character that's just like, did you hit your wilds? And like Midnight Suns has lots of ways to help him with that, with Siege of Darkness making an extra attack, and Bats the Ghost Town to just give him the wild. And having bump and one below all on turn one gives him wild mobility. He can like double tap like practically your deployment zone on turn one if that's a thing you want to do. Or you can hold the card for when he gets like dazed, stand back up, and then gets staggered, and you can use it to ditch conditions. That's pretty cool. Generally, I don't like this character, but a lot of that has to come down to when I'm slotting him in, I'm in matchups I already don't want to be in. So, like, nothing in Midnight Suns feels good, and he just feels the least terrible. So I only experience him when he feels kind of bad. So he's also on the fringes. Like, if I can find a better solution for Asgard or for Thanos or any of, like, the getting trapped on low threats by a tall team, then he'll get out of here. I think there's some interesting work that you can do with like Dracula and Namor on thralls. And while that's included in this list, I'm not sure that I'm going to play it. I think I'm just threatening it. I don't know if there's a situation that I can think of where I'm actually playing it. All right, next up, Kraven the Hunter. As I discussed before, this is a team list, so I can't have every single thing that I want. I think there's a good argument that the 3-threat splash should just be Zemo. One of my partners is Mike DeLuca, who's playing a Cabal Asgard list, which means that Zemo is not available. So I can't have Zemo. So Kraven's the next best 3-threat into fighting Web Warriors. So Zemo's not incredible at it, but he's fast, has charge, is like pretty good at finding webs, and then can chip in other places and gives rerolls. And like everybody knows how good Zemo is. But Kraven is good into webs. Corner the Beast is really, really strong into Web Warriors. It has absolutely wild interactions when you daze them. Like, because Corner the Beast says when it falls off. Corner the Beast falls off at the end of a character's activation that has it on it. So if you end up dazing the model, right, Corner the Beast stays on them until they activate. So you can have really funny things where like you just put Corner the Beast on a low health model and be like, okay, don't, like try to walk away from me and die. It's fine. It also kind of synergizes with Dracula. You can like leave a character low, put that on it, and then when you activate Dracula, Dracula can just like walk the character and it'll die, and it lasts over the turn line. So like let's say my last activation, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna try to kill Spectacular, and I leave Spectacular on 1, and I just put Corner of the Beast on him. Top of the next turn, I activate Dracula, and I walk Spider-Man with my gaze of Dracula, and he just dies to Corner of the Beast. Kraven also opens up some of the really interesting, like activate Kraven, put Expert Tracker on a thing, 2-tap it, play Siege. Or like 2-tap it, maybe Kraven kills it, maybe you Yahtzee into a bunch of power, maybe you fail to kill it. And then you can like play Siege and have your Siege models benefit from Expert Tracker to get extra dice. It's cute, and it's kind of corner case. It looks really good and it feels really cool when you do it, but you don't actually do it that often. There's almost always a more important activation than Kraven's. The other thing I like about Kraven and like playing Kraven well is that he's just a really low threat model that threatens to do a lot of damage if you start next to something. So you can like create situations where you don't have priority, where it's like, all right, activate over here and kill Drac, or Drac will kill something, or like control Drac over here, or activate over here and kill Kraven, or Kraven's gonna kill something. And so like you can like force a lot of tough decisions for not a lot of cost. And then lastly, Kraven interacts with Bump really, really well. Like he has the Ghost Spider thing with Bump. It's not as good as the Ghost Spider thing because, Ghost Spider can like bump, attack a thing, walk, and then attack the thing again and walk again and get the bonus dice. Kraven's attack that does all that stuff. To get the extra dice, you have to do the other attack, the Kukri Strike. So it's harder to do that, but also, like, a lot of the times what I need Kraven to do is to, like, run the bases on a pay-to-flip. So, like, Kraven will bump, spear thrust somebody, or, like, bump, flip a point, spear thrust somebody, walk medium, flip a point, spear thrust somebody, walk medium, flip a point. And that's really good. And maybe he got some power along there somewhere and like can throw in some Corner of the Beasts or some Expert Trackers and help out. Also, the dude does bleed, right? And bleed helps Dracula and Blade. Werewolf by Night also does bleed. So like there's like a lot of bleed synergy running around in the list just naturally, and this guy also helps with that. All right, in that same vein, we're also playing Lockjaw. All right, so Lockjaw is not actually in my team's roster. Lockjaw is, I couldn't get a hold of a Wrecking Crew, Wrecking Crew is actually in my team's roster, whereas Lockjaw was in the roster I won LVO with. They kind of do a similar thing. This slot, I think, is reserved for your safe grab. So if you don't know, Sun's bump interacts really favorably with a lot of 2-power characters that are fast. So if you play something like Zemo and you play I'm a Baron after all, you can have 2-power on turn 1, you can walk long, bump, pick up a thing, back up. Same thing with Bill, same thing with Hela, same thing with Crew, and also kind of true with Lockjaw, although Lockjaw's is a little bit more complicated. And Lockjaw is the cheapest of the safe grabs for Suns, because Zemo costs a card and is 3 threat, and Lockjaw's just 3 threat. So how Lockjaw's works is Lockjaw starts within 2 of somebody, gets his 3 extra power. He has 4 power now, spends 2 of it to place himself medium, can then bump to the midline, pick up an objective, and then walk short back. Makes him strong on openers. Also, him only walking short back means that he's probably in a position where he can also still get the extra 3 power next turn and then start either moving characters around, like either able to teleport Drac forward or like walk and throw a piece of terrain. Because the trick to playing Lockjaw is to actually get work out of Lockjaw. Like, Lockjaw is a character a lot of people play for very strong openers, but getting him to do more than that is when you actually get Lockjaw to pay for his 3 points. And that's the hard part about playing Lockjaw. I also think Lockjaw has some like interesting aggro openers. I especially like him on Senators, where like your Senators list is like, what is 19? You play like him and Drac as your splashes, and then you play, Blade, Voodoo, and Kantu, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, that's 19. So you play like that list, and on turn 1, you go with Lockjaw. Lockjaw just teleports Drac onto the midline, and then you walk, bump with Lockjaw, and you can pick up a Senator and still be within 2 of Drac. You don't have any power because it's your whole stack, but you're up there, you're set up for next turn, and you've picked up an objective, and you've advanced Dracula. So I like that as an interesting opener. I think Crew's just better here. Obviously, Bill would be the best. Like, if you're playing this list and you don't have the restrictions that I had, probably just play Bill here. I think it's just better. Also, Bill is really good in, like, if you ever audible to Thralls of Dracula, Bill is really good in Thralls for the same reason he's really good in Hellfire. Healing Bill is just really good. Like, the character's really hard to kill. He holds objectives extremely well. That's his job here. Crew is interesting here. I've been playing some Crew. They're just really fast in Suns, and generally they don't do anything. They just kind of like run around and don't die, and they're just like very fast, and they can rotate really quickly and just kind of keep the objective away from people. And because they're on a large base, bump moves them a million miles. Also, like, you can have 4 power on them, and they can bump and then move medium and then start their potential 3 attacks. And it's especially wild when you're like looking for beams or they're holding a hammer or some other nonsense. So I think it's probably Bill. I would love for it to be Crew. I'm having a lot of fun playing Crew, but Bill wasn't available. So we're playing Crew in the teams thing. I'm trying Lockjaw here because Crew wasn't available. I played Lockjaw once. He was great. Last pick here is Namor with Time Gem, or Clocks Mackenzie, as Alex Botts calls it. Time Namor is my boy. I love Time Namor. I was looking for a last slot here for the roster, and nobody on my team had taken Time Namor, and I have so many Time Namor games. I think he's so good. He is the fastest model in the game, and in Suns, he's even faster. And I think he really helps on pay-to-flips. I think that Suns are pretty good at pay-to-flips, which is like kind of unintuitive because their leadership costs power, but it has to do with just like they're really effective at like running the bases, or like just like doing the laps around Sword or spider portals or whatever. Just like really good at being able to get to multiple objectives every single turn. There's a really fun trick you can do with only Time Namor in Suns that I got to do in finals against X-Men. It was Senators and Sword. And this trick also works on senators and meteors as well. And it might work on senators and madmen. I would have to measure it. But anyway, on senators and sword, Namor can walk long, spend 1 to pick up a senator, spend 1 to flip the sword. He can then bump. He is now in range to attack whoever picked up the opposing senator, and then can surf onto the sword point and try to flip that. And then just, like replace that with wherever the meteor fits. And you either flip your meteor with him, or you can attack the opponent's senator holder, surf onto their meteor, and try to flip their meteor. It can just be an enormous points swing on like an early turn, like a late activate, like holding Namor as your last activation. Your opponent's like, okay, your 6th threat's just going to go pick up a thing and flip 2 points, or and flip a point. But when he flips 2 points and gets an attack, it's really good. And a lot of people on don't think that they're safe on the senator's line from Namor because his charge doesn't reach. He doesn't have enough for bump charge, but he does have enough for bump or walk, bump, punch you. And he can do other things on the way. So like in finals, I was able to flip my meteor, pick up my senator, and flip their meteor, which flipped sword to me, which was just an enormous swing in tempo. All right, tactics cards. We have the obvious ones in Bats the Ghost Hound and Siege of Darkness. Bats is really, really strong. You play it every single game that you're playing Blade's Leadership. It's just really good. It's offensive. It's defensive. I actually almost lost my finals game. I had the mummy that had to just mummy and cover had to live through a storm builder while on 4 health. He hits the 4% or whatever and kills him, and I double skull. So I thought I couldn't live there because he killed me exactly. But Bats works on skulls. And I would have been really sad if I had ended up losing that game because I didn't know how Bats the Ghost Town works. Siege of Darkness is just the dumbest card, dude. We all know that Wakanda Forever is bullshit. Siege of Darkness is a fixed Wakanda Forever. This card's just so stupid. You can just, start turns. You can just have top of turns that are just so oppressive because you're going to make 3 suns attacks and then you're going to activate a model and that model's going to make 2 attacks. So you just get to make 5 attacks to open a turn. And it can just be such an absurd tempo swing that it's just fundamentally unfair. And that's part of why this faction is so strong. I think I would describe Suns as a fair pile of characters that have some unfair tactics cards and have kind of an unfair leadership. And that's what makes them strong. And so if they play anybody else that's kind of doing the same thing, they're very good. My restricteds here are Sacrifice. I was able to talk my team into letting me have Sacrifice. I love Sacrifice. I think Sacrifice is actually the best restricted card, with Brace being second place. I know that's an unpopular opinion to have. Obviously, Brace is really good, but Sacrifice is a really hard card to blank. Brace is a really easy card to blank. You just don't bring throws, or you just don't bring that many throws. And then I can't have Brace because, everybody, you just play Brace here probably if you're taking this team and you're not in the team, this list, and you're not in a team tournament. But I've been playing Indomitable instead, and I'm kind of flabbergasted at how strong this card is. It definitely deserves to be on the restricted list, but nobody plays it because everybody plays Brace and Sack, or Brace and Patch Up, or Brace and Fallback. But Indomitable is also really strong. A lot of times I play games and it is just Brace. It is just I throw this character into this character, and you're like, well, I actually just play Indomitable, and I stop you, and that Brace doesn't happen. Or it just functions like Brace, but one character pays all of the power instead of it being split across the 2. But also occasionally it does other really strong things. And when you're playing a list that is this invested in Dracula, I'm playing Dracula in half my games, Indomitable is really, really powerful because, okay, I'm going to shoot Drac with a push gun, and I shoot him and he can't counterattack me because I push him away. and you're like, no, I Indomitable and I counterattack it. And be like, okay, well, Indomitable's gone. Now I do it again. Oh, I Warpath back and I do it again. It's just giving you like two different ways to let you interact with a Drac counterattack. It's just very strong. And now we've kind of gotten into the problem with this roster. Problem in heavy quotes here. It is really hard for me to step off the 5 tactics cards that are Warpath, Indomitable, Sacrifice, Bats, Siege of Darkness. If I'm playing Dracula and I'm in Midnight Suns, I'm playing those 5 cards essentially every single time. There are situations where you don't do that. But I haven't really bumped into them. So I'm playing those 5 cards like almost always if I'm playing both Blade and Dracula. And I'm in Midnight Suns so that I can play the 2 other cards. All right. So there's maybe slight corner cases where you don't play those cards. Okay. So the rest of the cards, if you're not going to play those 5, what else do I have in here? I have One Below All. If I'm playing Immortal Hulk, I'm probably not playing Dracula. Like, it's good. It's a free place. It makes Immortal Hulk very mobile, much harder to control. Lets him move 1,000,000 miles with One Below All and Bump, and then still have Gamma Leap. Like, if you have the 6 power and you need to move very, very far, you'll be happy to have the card. I'm playing Instant Recovery. Instant Recovery is not as absurdly strong as Exceptional Healing was, but the card's still really good. I have a Healing Factor model in Werewolf by Night. Werewolf by Night has a nice big hit point pool, so being able to Instant Recovery is nice. It usually doesn't hit the table because, again, the top 5 cards are just more important. There's not a lot of lineups where I play Werewolf by Night and I don't play Dracula, but it's here just in case that happens. I have Thralls of Dracula. For this entire event, I just like have this feeling that there's like a spot where I should play this card, and I have open slots because Team Tactics cards are just like, there aren't a lot of super strong ones. Like, the Balance Pass removed a lot of the really strong generic cards, but it means that now there's just like, they didn't take every strong card in the game away. You kind of still have your 2 restricteds, your 2 in-faction cards, and then Warpath or Recal. And it's kind of hard to like fall out of that for most factions. But I had a strong feeling that Thralls of Dracula, there's a spot where like Bump doesn't work on like maybe being trapped at 15s on Gamma. And I didn't have that situation come up, and I hadn't really found any of them in testing by the time I played in this. I've since found a couple places where I think it's interesting to play like Clocks, Dracula, Blade, or Clocks, Dracula, Voodoo, and play in Thralls. I don't know. I'm still testing this out. We're still trying to figure out what's going on here. But again, I have the slots. I'm not really doing anything with them. Here I have Service to Anubis. Again, kind of the same idea. Like, Service to Anubis is a wildly underrated card. Again, its problem is that it struggles to break into my 5 because my 5 core tactics cards are so strong. But Service to Anubis is really cool. I used to think it was really a big downside that you didn't discard the souls when you made the attack so that you couldn't earn souls back. But it's actually really nice that you don't, because it just incentivizes you to make the attacks and spend the souls to do damage. And also, like, the Mummy, one of the upsides of Encanto is that, like, you are online with very little power, and it's very easy to get power due to the souls mechanic. So you only really need, like, you can spend your whole turn spending as much power as possible, and it's like 4 power. And Bump 5 power. So like if you daze and stand up and have like 10 power and need a big effect, having Service to Anubis is nice. The last card that I played in this was Venomized. Venomized is kind of a meme here. The idea is that you play it with Lockjaw, and on turn 2 you like or you just like find a window where you can play it on Lockjaw. Because Lockjaw often has tons of power, not a lot of stuff to interact with, and a lot of his problem is that people aren't within range 2 of him for him to attack them. So you find a window where you can spend an action to play Venomized. And now Lockjaw gets really scary because he can essentially Venomized every turn because he makes 3 free power. He makes 4 power a turn. This costs 3. It lets him heal back. It's cute. I've actually realized now that my problem is that when I play Thralls of Dracula, there's lots of builds where I would build Thralls, and Venomized is one of my only legal tactics cards that I can bring. This should just be Recal. Like 100% it. Like if you're going to play this list, take Venomized out, play Recal. I was doing science here. It's cute. It's also like fairly cute on clocks as like clocks. It has a billion power, and there are times where he either doesn't want to kill the thing he just charged because he staggered it and left it on 1, and like doesn't want to just give it a free flip over. He wants to either threaten to daze it at the top of the next turn, or like let it take its 1 action and then kill it or whatever, right? And clocks being able to heal, like the 2 energy defense hurts a lot, but being able to heal is really good. And I don't know. I want to play around with this more. Maybe cut service to Anubis for Recal. But it's interesting. All right, so those are our tactics cards. All right, Crisis. For Secures, I played Intrusions, Infinity Formula, Mutant Madman. This is a little bit limited again. We're playing in true Highlander where cards can't overlap. So I'm kind of forced onto some of this stuff. I think this is pretty close to where I'd be at. It's some of the other options are like meta calls. So like I could see you totally playing like Extremis here. If you have like no Web Warriors, no Hellfire in your meta, you can play that. I was originally on Extremis before we talked about it because it's a team tournament, and in team tournaments, there's essentially no Hellfire, and there's usually very little webs because webs kind of need every single one of their tools. They really struggle to give anything up. They can give up like Zemo and like maybe their splashes, but they can't really give up any of their core. They need all of it. So a lot of times, if anybody's like, it means that you can't play webs with Shield because Shield also leans really hard on Spectacular Spider-Man, and you only have 1. So I thought there would be less, so I was originally on it. And then I remembered that we just have a Web Warriors player in our roster, so I was like, you take Extremis. Like, you're better at it than me. But I don't think playing Extremis would be absurd here. Intrusions is really good and really fun. It's just like, I threaten the midline really hard, and it forces everyone to stand on the midline on turn 1. And so me being able to be like, walk, bump, Drac attacks you. Walk, bump, Werewolf attacks you. Walk, bump, Voodoo attacks you. Is just like a lot of early pressure to like do stuff on turn 1. Madman we're okay at because like our team's really good at rotating. Bump is really helpful. Drac hates walking, but when he walks, he can walk long and then bump for 2 power. And then if he has 4 power, he can also pull you from 3 to make his 1 attack. Means that like rotating on a B is actually a thing that we can do, whereas most teams can't. Most teams pick their columns and they need to win both fights. And we can win a fight, we can refuse flank, we can do lots of stuff on the B shape, so Mad and Infinity are really good for us. Crisis, or Extracts, sorry. We're already in the Crisis section. Extracts. We have Montesi, Skrulls, and Senators. I've talked a lot about the Senators play. It's originally like really unintuitive that a team that likes to fight as much as Midnight Suns does would be good at Senators, but they're very good at Senators. Bump just helps out a ton in a format where you can only walk once with a character that's holding a extract. It also helps them not get away from you. Now, it means that you kind of have to be on your game here, as there are a lot of points and the scenario can get away from you. But everything else we like. We like that it stops you from walking. There's certain matchups where we do really like its high point scoring into Cabal or Asgard or any of the more elite teams. We're really happy to have like more extracts on the table. And like being able to force the game to end on 4 or 5 instead of going full 6. Skrulls is really good for us. It forces midline fights. We have lots of medium-based medium movers that can go pick up the friendly Skrull. The Senator's trick I talked about with Lockjaw, where Lockjaw can like place somebody medium and then, or place somebody 3 and then walk bump. It works on scrolls. You have to be careful with it on scrolls because it'll push Lockjaw, but also like it's Lockjaw. Who cares? Hopefully they don't kill him, or maybe terrain will help you block it or whatever. Or you can like walk bump, pick up, see if he gets pushed. If he doesn't get pushed, you can teleport the guy. If he does get pushed, you can just teleport yourself back. And then Montesi is good. We have 2 safe grabs. If we go first on Montesi, we feel incredible because we can play either Lockjaw or we can play Clocks Mackenzie and like go safe grab a thing. And even if they have priority and Montesi comes up, Namor is really good at running down whatever safe grab picked up the Montesi formula. And that's a thing we can do. And also a lot of times we're taller than our opponent. So having like second to last activation being like Namor walk charges whatever hasn't activated. Staggers it. It attacks Namor because it's not really going to do anything else, or it walks somewhere. And then Namor has the power to like spender, make the character that safe grabbed the middle thing, pick it up, walk a long way. And then maybe bump too, right? Like you have like lots of chances to get the Montesi formula back. We have lots of good Mystic defenses except for like Werewolf, but like everybody else is a 4+. So anyway, that's the list. At the event, I played against Criminal Syndicate, Apocalypse, X-Men, and Brotherhood. My games were all great. I played against a criminal game, round 1. The guy was feeling a little bit under weather. I don't remember a ton about this game. I just know that I got an early Madman lead and Extract lead, and I was able to just parlay it into a very quick win. Game 2 was the Brotherhood game. It was really spooky because of the list that he brought. He played Scarlet Witch, Magneto, Toad, and Juggernaut, which is 3 of the hardest Mystic characters ever. Like Witch is Def 4 counts skulls. Juggernaut is Def 5. Magneto is Def 6 against Mystic, and I played Drac and Blade that game, and it could have been really bad. But the thing that essentially happened was he played a really bad Asteroid M and kind of like refused flanked himself. He did it to like save Witch, and then she left, and then I was able to get all the extracts onto the opposite side, and his best rotation tool had been used. I think if he had played that same squad on not Madman, on like a central thing, I'd have been in a lot of trouble with the squad that I drafted because they'd have been just so resilient. Game 3 was into Apocalypse. Apocalypse is actually really spooky for my list, as a lot of us are not particularly good at killing Apocalypse because we have so many auto bleed triggers. And Apocalypse starts immune to bleed, which means your first attack into Apocalypse heals him 2, not 1. Because he gets 1 from immune to bleed. And like the triggers that put conditions on are not optional. You can't be like, oh, I just don't do it then. No, that sucks. So like Blade's attacks are really tough. He also can't get bleed, so you can't get the rerolls on him. Drac does all right, because Drac does threaten to throw him away with the Mystic attack, and he's a size 4 that you can throw into friendlies. And then, like, the Werewolf counterattack also heals him, so the Werewolf should just essentially never counterattack him. You just don't want to play the Werewolf into him. A lot of that game just came down to everyone except for Dracula rolled bananas, and Dracula did nothing. And he played very scared of Dracula, and I was able to go way up turn 1 on points, and I just kind of like rode that. And then final game, I played against Dustin into his X-Men. Dustin just got back from WTC. Dustin's an incredible player. I essentially just had, I think his game came down to a couple key decisions. I think my turn 1 Namor play where I like picked up my Senator, flipped my sword, bumped to his angel that had picked up a senator, stabbed him, surfed to his point and successfully flipped it, and then got to like push Hulk with the sword base, meant that I just like had a big tempo advantage to open the turn. And then I threatened to kill Kurt, and he played Dream to save Kurt. And then Kurt just didn't get a lot out of his activation when he went. And so ultimately, when we were like thinking back on the game, him playing Dream was probably incorrect there. And then the following turn, I was able to play like a big Siege of Darkness where I KO'd Kurt and KO'd Angel, and was able just to create so much tempo and so much like material advantage in the game. And then I barely managed to not close that game because of Storm clutching up and killing Encantu, and me not knowing how Bats the Ghost Hound works. And then lots of stuff went his way, and it got very spooky for a minute, but I managed to just like, my lead was just like too big, and I managed to close it out. But anyway, that was my trip to the LVO qualifier. I guess I'm going LVO now, and playing in the Invitational. I don't think I'm going to be bringing Midnight Suns, but this is my Midnight Suns list. Let me know what you think. I'll let you guys know how Contest of Champions works out. If you're picking up Midnight Suns, let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget that fun is a finite resource.